Dreams of stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup is a whisper. Conversations open doors. Spilling thoughts forevermore. Ideas bubble crisp and bright. Words take flight in morning light. Consult the heart, make it sing. New perspectives on each wing. Every thought becomes so clear. From stations and bubbling streams, waking up to brand new dreams. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup was a whisper. Conversation.
Good morning, guys. It is Saturday. We are here. It is 6/6/26. We are in June, guys. Can you believe we're halfway through the year already? Like we're climbing quickly. It's running out. Have you finished the goals you set for the year? Let's get serious about today. My name is Melissa Houston. I am the cultivator of dreams, motivator of human capital. What that means is I hold people like you accountable. We help. I help. But we together help your dreams become achieved. We get serious about accountability. We get a plan together. We figure out what's not working. We figure out how to overcome that or return some investment in that area before we decide to, shut it off or shut it down, evolve. Sometimes you just need a second mind. And so I am here to help those leaders who are already kind of rocking their life, but maybe hit a slump, a slow spot, a dry spell, a lack of passion has overcome your life and you're ready for something better. I'm your girl. That's me. That's what I do. I do it for professionals. I do it for businesses. When the fun and passion has left, you just need somebody to come in and kind of shake it up. And trust me, I can do that for you. So if we're just getting to know each other, please go check out documentthenact.com. That is my website. It is also the premise in which I think all things happen. All good things. You want to be successful, you got to write it down and get to work. and you have to rinse and repeat often. And so we're going to talk about that. It's not enough to write it down on paper. I love my journal. I love my to-do list. But if we're not accountable to ourselves to make sure we're paying attention to those things, if we're not accountable to get the work done on the to-do list, put some time frame on the to-do list, are we really being accountable? And what does that look like? Right? Because I can talk about coaching all day long. I can talk about ways I can help you. But the truth is, we as humans are only going to allow help if we want it. We're going to allow change if we want it. And if we're not going to allow it, if we don't want it, if we're not really invested in the process, we're going to be working against it. And it's funny because, and good morning, guys. You know, I'm really fired up this morning, but do you remember the first person to hold you accountable outside of your parents, right? We all were raised to have some kind of homework, chores, some kind of something that we needed accountability for, right? And so beyond your parents, who was the first person to hold you accountable in a way that helped you become successful? For me, I can always think about the teachers, and all of them, just put them all down. But I was what I call alphabetical, maybe a little ADD, never fully diagnosed, guys, but oh man, do I check every list on the box. I was the kid who would be made an example in the classroom where they would pull everything out of my desk to see everything I had shoved in the back. That doom desk in first grade was a real thing. And the accountability of having somebody say, hey, this is messy. We need to work on this together. Let's pull it out. Let's get it done. It was a game changer. There's a lot of reasons it was. Sometimes it was because I was so embarrassed. I never wanted to live through that again. Sometimes it was just because, wow, okay, at least we're finally going to make time to do it. I always felt like I wasn't in control of my time in a classroom. So even when I wanted to, I couldn't do it. Excuses. Truthfully, excuses. Because if I really wanted to do it during class time, I would ask my teacher for the time to do it. Of course, first grade, I'm going to give myself so much grace. I was a kid. But let's fast forward, guys. I'm not a kid anymore. I don't know how many of you guys are children in the audience, but let's be serious. What does accountability look like these days? We absolutely had that person, and I'm still waiting for the comments to catch up. So tell me, who was that person who held you accountable? But what does it look like for you these days? If we are friends, you guys have heard this quote before. Victory and victim both start out the same way. It's up to you how it ends. And if you look at those words, it is a very literal explanation of life. Overcoming obstacles, things we face, things I believe we are ultimately accountable for either being a victim of the moment or being victorious in the way we handle it. Doesn't mean the problem is going to disappear. Doesn't mean the problem is just going to be resolved automatically, but the way we face these problems, the way we tackle life with truth and accountability and honesty and full transparency and the ability to go, you know what, if I didn't do it, that's my fault. People struggle with that. Do you guys struggle with that kind of accountability? I call it radical accountability, where it doesn't matter who did what. The guy across the street from me ran the red light and hit me. Still my fault. Ask me why. Now, trust me on the insurance company paperwork. We're going to talk about the fact that that guy did the wrong thing to make the accident happen. But was I in a defensive posture when it happened? Was I ready for the unknown like I was trained to be in school? In driver's ed, they say you are responsible for your vehicle. You're responsible to make sure you're monitoring around you. You're responsible to make sure that you are being defensive while you're on the road. So if I'm fully aware at all times, taking radical accountability for my safety when I'm on the road with a multiple 1,000-pound vehicle, riding around with others who are in the same kind of environment, and we're doing it anywhere between 45 and 80 miles an hour on average. Are you radically accountable for your safety, or are you just hoping that others are going to help? Now, that's kind of the premise today, okay? This is going to be a hard one. It's not going to be easy. I'm not picking at you. I'm picking at me transparently in front of you. I am telling you all the things that I have faced, all the things I have thought, all the things I have done to keep myself accountable for the things I want to see. To make sure that I am not a victim of my environment, but I am absolutely, unapologetically creating the environment in which I live. Are you ready? I want to say good morning to Aaron Gibson. Thank you so much for that song. Every time I turn on that song, I get the energy up. It doesn't matter if I'm show ready or not. If my mind's like, wish I had another 10 minutes. That song comes on, it's over. I'm ready to go. So good morning, Aaron. Hey, Sean. Sean is one of my favorite supporters. He pops up so consistently and randomly. He's just so nice. He just randomly pops up, and I love that. He also loves Massimo, so 90s kid out there. Gotta say, we have that in common. Aaron says, actually, come to think of it, you are the only one that has kept me accountable since my parents. Holy sweet Mary, mother of pearl. Yes, sir. I don't expect you to grow up, though. And that's something else, guys. You don't have to necessarily, finger quotes, grow up to be radically accountable, right? I know kids who are radically accountable for their marble collection. They wouldn't leave maybe their little teddy bear. My daughter never left a room, never left a space without her teddy bear. She was radically accountable for that. And so let's talk about that today, right? You could be a kid and be radically accountable for the things that are important. You just have to decide to. OG Mike 007 says agency is a powerful source, as is freeing ourselves from the scarcity mindset. Oh, I love these comments. One of the first people to hold me accountable was probably my best friend, says David Pushkin. Felipe, hello, good morning. We're talking about radical accountability and who held us accountable first in life. So I would love to know, beyond your teachers, maybe even your parents, guys, like, who was it? Who held you accountable? Because we know the parents do. We know the teachers, and teachers too. They could be your first. That was my first. But who was it? Who do you remember holding you accountable in a way that was like, nope, no more BS. We're just going to cut through it. All right, so let's get into this, right? I'm very excited about this show. So, radical accountability starts here, right in the mirror. When you determine you are unhappy about a situation, it is your job to assess what needs to be done about it. When you're ready for change, you know it inside before anybody else does. And when you look in the mirror, if you're not looking at the person who is going to empower you, your best friend, your superhero, the person standing there in the cape and the spandex and a body that you've always dreamed of, right? Like, it could be your alter ego. But if that is not who you see in the mirror, when you're talking to yourself about your dreams, I want you to write down what you see instead. And this is a hard one, guys. I'm going to be honest. This is not an easy coffee chats. This is not an easy reflection time for those who struggle. If you feel like, hey, man, I'm always knocking out my to-do list. I don't need people to remind me. It's like every day I'm a machine. This is a great show for you to take your gold star. Congratulations to you, because so many people struggle to do it, including myself. The reason I know that radical accountability starts here is because if I say out loud that I don't like something more than one time, if I reiterate that out loud in the space I'm in, if I keep speaking and saying this isn't it yet and it doesn't change, what do? What do you do if you're in a room that doesn't feel right? A space, a role, a relationship, anything. Insert here. It's your life. I don't know what it is for you. But what happens when you think of those spaces? What do you expect to happen when you're uncomfortable? Who are you looking to in the room to change it for you? And why isn't it yourself? How often in your life have you said, this is not for me, and immediately made a change? For me, I think the easiest one, especially as a child, is to say, nope, I don't like that vegetable. I don't like that vegetable. It's the first time I can think of myself really setting a standard going, I don't want to eat this thing. Right? And as a kid, we're pretty strong, right? We're pretty strong in that we'll sit there until it's bedtime and to not eat the vegetable we dislike. Where in your life as an adult do you say no thank you to the finger quotes vegetables? I have to admit, in my life, both childhood and grown up, I have put up with things that I shouldn't have. I have allowed people around me that made me not feel great about myself. I have a lot of people around me whose behavior I would not put my name on. And so, that old adage grandma used to say, you are who you hang out with. When I look around the room sometimes, I really have to process, what am I doing and why? Again, radical accountability. If it doesn't make me feel good, if it doesn't make me money, if it doesn't make a ripple happen for somebody else to give back in a way that I had planned or hoped to, if there's no ROI, if it's just not healthy, whatever it is, who's going to make the change? I think about this often, guys, because we all want something different, right? We all have a list of things we would love to fix right now in our lives. I don't care what it is. It could be your kitchen sink. It could be a light on the car. It could be a noise that's happening because the clock needs a whatever. I don't care. There's that little tiny irritation that's just building. And what I hate about this is we turn the noise down on those things quite often, humans. And I say we as humans because humans do. We just go, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay. First thing I can think of right now is the smoke detector with the battery. Let's be honest, guys. What is the longest time you've let it beep, beep, instead of changing the battery? Let's talk about it, right? What in your life is that smoke detector with a low battery just beeping at you and you're ignoring it anyway? You know there's work to be done. You know there's danger if you don't get to work. You're stepping into a space where you're going to have less protection once that battery dies, whether it's of brand, mindset, self, belief system. All of those things add up for Melissa, right? As humans, we have so many things. How are you going to turn off that beep when it's time? Okay. Accountability works best when you stop ignoring yourself. For me, I am to blame for everything that happens in my life to some degree. If I have a ache at work in my hip, for example, it's my fault. I'm on my feet. I didn't plan my day to have a rest period. Is it always true that way? Maybe. I chose the job. I knew what I signed up for. I knew that there would be opportunities for me to push myself beyond maybe what my body wants to do. That's me being accountable for what I'm feeling. I have a choice to either stay at a job that would allow me to feel that, or I can look for something different. I can either prepare myself in my job to not have these tasks be mine by delegating, or I need to do it in shorter spurts to maybe not feel that ache, right? Think about it too with family. Those who know, I had a pretty hard time getting along with my family at all times just because of the environment in which I was raised. There was a lot of drugs. There was a lot of homelessness. There was a lot of abuse. And you can't always escape those things, right? But you can speak up. If I could do anything for the younger me, I would tell her, speak freely about what's happening. Let them be radically accountable for their behavior too. So that's something else I want to talk about. When you stop ignoring yourself, it doesn't mean you're going to burn down the world. It doesn't mean you have to ruin every relationship you've ever had. It doesn't mean the sky is now falling. It just means you have work to do. And the work can vary. Sometimes it's as simple as telling your best friend, hey, that doesn't feel great. Can we not do that anymore? Sometimes it's telling yourself, hey, you said you want to feel this way. Why do you keep injecting this into your life, body, mind, if it makes you feel the opposite of what you're asking for? I want you to pause for 2 seconds and just ask yourself, what is it that I wanted to change last week, last year, that's still a problem for me today, that I'm still addressing mentally, emotionally, physically today that I didn't want to do last year? David has the comment, when I think about accountability, I also think about the theme of growth, and growth at times can be painful. Look at the example of the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Nothing easy, doesn't come out without pain, into an extent, also growth from that pain. I love that. I was just talking, I think it was Aaron this week, about the butterfly and caterpillar. And I absolutely go through these growth cycles, guys. When life gets too much, the first thing I do is clear my plate. If I feel like I'm juggling way too many things, if I have too much to chew on at once, I take some off my plate. I put it away for later. I reassess the timelines. I give myself grace. I ask for help. Whatever it might be, that accountability, that growth time, that going into your cocoon to build, to refresh, to whatever it is, you are the one who has to make the space. I wish they would come to you and say, hey, it's spring break, go home. I know you were used to a structure that gave you the break you needed when you needed it when you were younger. Sometimes it came late, right? I'm going to be honest. I was ready for spring break every time spring break came around. What's your spring break now? How often do you get that kind of time to just go outside and play with friends and not have to do the work and not have the homework and not have anybody or deadlines looming? Do you still give yourself the space? And if you don't, why? When's the last time you actually did this check-in? I am a big fan as a life mindset coach, right? Business consultant too. You have to review the data and you have to do it often. When you're in sales, every day's numbers matter. Every single day, because if you slightly miss today by 5%, 1%, and you consistently do that throughout the month without monitoring the lost traction overall, you could lose 30% at minimum if it's just 1% a day, 30 days, right? 25%. That's a quarter of your business if you're only talking Monday through Friday. What if a quarter of your business slipped away every day because you weren't able to complete 100%? And what if you didn't know it was happening until the end of the year? What if you were planning on $100,000 worth of revenue and it ended up being 75? Think about relationships. What if you thought you were giving your spouse 100%, but you weren't? How long does it take for that relationship to come up with a C score, that 75% mark? When I look in the mirror, I want to be able to look at my best friend. I want to be able to trust the person in the mirror is making the best decisions for me at all times, that it's not negotiable, that they are the superhero I was talking about in that first slide, right? That mirror of me as my best self, as my future self. If you've ever seen Harry Potter, it's like the dream mirror, right? Where you're standing there and you see your heart's desire. Do you know what she's, for me, it's a she, right? When I look at Melissa in the mirror, I know what she's thinking. I know what she's aching for. I know what she's pushing for. I know why she does it. Sometimes I don't know why she's tired. Sometimes I really have to slow down to speed up and to assess. And guys, I know humans on LinkedIn, we're busy people. And that's where we're streaming right now, guys. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. It's cool. But the truth is, LinkedIn is a very busy spot for live events. It's a very busy spot for networking. It's a very busy spot for connecting. On top of the everyday jobs people are doing, you have events 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day. Probably, I'm not connected to everybody globally, but I'm certain you could go live all the time on LinkedIn. Do you know why you're there? Do you know why social media is active on your phone? What is the ROI for you? Is it business? Is it pleasure? Are you creating business networking connections? Are you trying to find more? Are you in the right space to do it? I will say, guys, I love Facebook. Facebook's a cool place to be, but I'm not there doing a lot of business. I know there are businesses there, but I find myself in a pool of a lot of startups. I find myself in a pool of a lot of side hustles, dream ideas, things that are just getting started, and that's cool. But I really love to eat at the table with the people who have Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, the people who are industry leaders and have been elevated by LinkedIn as a top voice, or they're in the top percentage of their craft on LinkedIn. Why? Because you are what you consume. If I go get stuck on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, if I go over there and I'm letting it pour into me variables, right? Sometimes it's a dance, sometimes it's a mukbang video, sometimes it's a waste of time. When Melissa's tired and overwhelmed and not able to execute what she needs to do, right? Again, in the third person, kind of hard. But when I look at myself as my own client, those little 10-minute trips into those social platforms that don't bring the same ROI is a waste. It's that 1% of time that I could be putting somewhere else. It's going to be the difference. Because if I show up for an hour on LinkedIn, my inbox lights up. Just a week and a half ago, I got a message saying, Houston, I have a problem. On Facebook, not the same, right? There are some things, but a lot of it is just more questions. Who are you? What do you do? How do you do it? And it's cool, but LinkedIn already created that space for me. So just one small example, but if I'm going to spend time on a platform, if I'm going to spend time investing in myself, and I do so on social media, do I know where that social is best for me? I know there are people out there who are killing it on Instagram, killing it on YouTube, killing it on TikTok, and LinkedIn is their afterthought. That's perfect for them. Maybe, question mark, right? I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. But you have to check in with you. Other things you can check in about beyond your LinkedIn and your business is your personal mindset. Are you really happy? Are you faking it? Are you putting on a front? Are you exhausted when you walk into the house because you've been wearing a suit that's not really you? What do you really want in the next 6 months? What do you want today? If I showed up with a magic wand and said, poof, I'm your genie, whatever it is, where would you ask me to take you? What would it look like? What would you keep exactly the same in your life? And what would you change? I want you to write that down. I hope that StreamYard will clip that because these questions matter, right? So let's talk about it. What is draining you? Today, if you had one thing to say, you don't have to share out loud. You can drop it in the comments. What is that thing that is draining you in your life? Does it keep repeating? And what have you been explaining away? Because it's easy to say, hey, I didn't do X because I'm tired. Okay, cool. What makes you so tired, right? I have to assess every part of your process as a coach. I can't skip a beat because if I miss something in the assessment, kind of like a doctor, right? If they have a symptom, but they don't ask more questions to drill down to see where the symptom is actually coming from, how can they have a real cure, not just a Band-Aid fix, right? So what is draining you? Why are you always tired? Is it something medically happening inside of you? Is it something external? Is it a repetitive behavior? Let's talk about your 20s, guys. In your 20s, were you always tired on a Saturday morning when you had to work at 10? And was it because you were dancing all night on Friday to 2000s hip hop trends? Because if you're always tired on Saturday and Saturday is the worst day of your work week every week, but it's because Friday you keep repeating the pattern of staying up until 2 a.m. at the bar, drinking, having fun, doing whatever, whose fault is it? And are you still blaming your boss for scheduling you on Saturday, or are you taking radical accountability to maybe get in bed the night before work, every night before work? It's a small example, but it's one that I know that when I was in my 20s, I was struggling on Saturdays sometimes because I did make a life choice. And it's not always wrong to be tired, guys. There's a difference between being tired because you overdid it yesterday as a one-time thing, or, hey, I went to Disney, I'm exhausted this week, we just got back, it was 50 million steps in a weekend. Cool. Do you do it every weekend? Do you plan the recovery time? Are you building up resistance so the steps don't get to be so exhausting? There is definitely a difference between being tired and being drained. What is that thing that's draining you? How often does it keep happening? And why? Why? What? Who? Where? How have you dared to keep explaining this away? It's not easy to change the things we don't like, but it's definitely harder to keep living with those things, identifying them, knowing them, and having to live through it. Mike says, know thyself, love yourself, love others, in that order. That's it. As a person of faith, even God says, love God, love your spouse, then your children. And I'm like, wow. Okay. There's an order of operations. And you know what, guys? You have to determine what that is for your life. And I think it changes, but we've talked about this since audio days. For those of you who were in my audio chats, you remember. The only time where you're allowed to ignore your child and the child being in a life-threatening situation is when you're on that airplane and you're allowed to secure your mask first. When you secure your mask first, you're making sure you're not drained so you can keep going, right? You're securing your ability to keep helping. I don't want you to feel bad for that. If you are telling yourself, I'm exhausted every time I do this, I am drained, it empties my soul out. What is your ROI and why is it a requirement to keep turning back? David Pushkin says, what drains me is my limiting beliefs. I need to step more into my light. Playing small doesn't benefit anyone. I must shine. David Pushkin, you better shine, sir, because we think you're fantastic here. And it's so true, guys. If you don't believe it yourself, who's going to? Every famous person, every athlete who made the team that went big to the big old scores and whatever, right? Like Super Bowl, playoffs, NBA, I don't care. They had to believe in themselves first. They had to not give up first. They had to believe that if they took another 10,000 steps today, if they ran the track just a little faster than the last guy, if they pushed themselves to do the homework when all their friends were going out because they wanted that scholarship, there's going to be results. There's going to be a difference. Mike says, what I had to do is give up on the expectations of people mirroring my willingness to give, resulting in a win-win. Yeah. We can't promise the other person's going to meet us. We can't promise people will reciprocate. We can't even promise people will understand our motives or intention when we try to help. So you take care of you. You help those who need help. I mean, my kids drained me when I was younger. I'll be honest. When I had babies and I had a C-section and I had toddlers and newborns and diapers, and there was 3 of them running around, all needing me constantly, I was drained. But it was worth every second. It wasn't something I wanted to change. I wanted to address the way some of the things happened in the house so it would feel less overwhelming. But not everything has to be altered to the point of removal, right? And so you have to decide for you, is it worth fixing? Is it something you just need to get rid of in life? I'm at this point now where every time I eat bread, my tummy gets mad at me. It starts to puff out a little bit. It looks like maybe I ate too much food, even if I didn't, right? So I have to determine, do I want to be uncomfortable and bloated because of bread? Do I want to maybe look for a gluten-free option and see if that would be it? Do I just want to maybe move to lettuce and not use bread at all for a while? Test the theory. Small, nuanced things. But when you're bloated all day, if you eat bread all day and it creates this like uncomfortable tummy feeling, what are we doing and why? Is bread worth it? Maybe. Some people would argue yes, and I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. For me, I'm not sure, right? And so it's small nuanced things, but think about your life in business, personal, whatever it is. You're making those choices. We're about 30 minutes in, guys. I can't believe we're already 30 minutes in. I will be opening the stage today. We're going to open it in a little bit. I want to get through the rest of my slides, but if you're interested in joining this conversation, please message me on LinkedIn. You will have to be on LinkedIn to get a hold of me. I'm not monitoring all the channels. And I'll send you the link to join the stage. We can talk about it. All right. So the hard part is not always figuring it out. Sometimes we know, like I said, I know bread does that to me. Sometimes the hard part is taking action. Hashtag radical accountability. So if I know pizza is a problem, if I know bagels are a problem, do I put them in the cart? Do I put them on my plate? How do I take action to stop the behavior? Yesterday was donut day, guys. Corporate was fantastic. Brought us some donuts. The team loved it. Got a couple dozen in the back. Everybody was so excited. And I just looked at it going, man, you know you want to lose weight. You know you've been working hard to do so. You know you don't want that bloated feeling. What are we going to do in this moment? And you know what I did? I ate the damn donut anyway. And I'm telling you this because perfection is not required either. Sometimes it's worth just opting into. Yesterday, I thought, why won't I share a donut with my team? Me making it a big deal to not eat a donut or me not partaking, it could have made my tummy feel better or not, right? But being able to sit there and break bread with my team and to enjoy a donut and to just take a moment of pause, it was worth it for me. So I didn't take the action of prevention in that moment. I took the action of partaking. Radically accountable for that tummy ache that could come, but radically accountable for the benefits of the team and for the day and for the action corporate wanted to represent and for the team building moment. Not everything has to be all or nothing. That's not really what I'm asking you to do. It's not black or white ever. But how are you accountable? Can you justify your actions to yourself to where you are accountable and still on track? Right? You can make a left turn, go over a block, and come back around and still be on the right track. Detours are allowed if you allow them, but that's up to you to determine when you take the turn or don't. This is all choose your own adventure in your life, guys. And that's where it gets hard because we have to deal with people, right? Maybe you're in a marriage, maybe you have children, maybe you're in a business where you have people sitting so close to you or they're part of your deals and you can't get rid of them in your process at work because they are part of the foundation that allows your job to perform. Oh, that one's harder, right? In those moments, who is draining you? Again, what keeps repeating? What can you change? When can you start that change? And how will you know it worked? The who, what, where, when, and whys are important, but the how matters too. So if you say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, and I'm going to go back to that stinking bread example. If I know that every time I eat pizza, I'm feeling a little bit heavier the next day. If I'm eating pizza twice a week and it's very consistent twice a week, I'm just blah. After lunch, what change? Where can I make a change? I could get a salad. I could get a burger. I could get anything beyond a pizza. When can I start? And well, as long as it's not pizza day to day at work, I'm pretty sure it could be today kind of thing, right? And how will you know it worked? Well, if twice a week I no longer feel the pizza fatigue, we're doing good things. Same can go in your relationships. Who is draining you? What behaviors are they repeating? Where can you make the change to stop it? Is it something you can even control? Is it something you can impact if it's somebody else's behaviors that are doing this? How can you make that change? For me, it would be communication at that point. This is what is happening. It's draining me. It keeps happening. This is what I need to happen for it to stop doing that to me. Setting the deadline, having the conversation, asking for the accountability of others in your space, whatever that is, your boss, your colleague, your partner. You need to know who, what, where, when, why when you bring this to them. You need to know when you need it to start. I need it to happen today. From today on, this is our new rule, or this is the thing we need to collaborate on, or this is the thing we're going to do. And then check in, guys. How will you know it worked if you don't reassess, right? You have to rinse and repeat. Come back and do it again. Because maybe you do the swap. Maybe you're like, I'm not going to eat pizza, but I went to Subway instead. Okay, Subway still has bread. Did you change the problem or did you change the environment in which the problem exists? Think about your solutions, guys. So many times we'll just leave one room and go right into another that's serving the same problem. You see it in relationships. We end up dating the same types over and over and over, right? Bob did this. We move on to Mike. Mike does this. Sorry, Mike, I see your name there. It popped up. Steve does this, whatever. You could just insert here. But if you don't know what it is that draws that behavior to you, if you don't know why you keep picking up the same type of behavior, maybe you date people with an alcohol issue. Okay. I think about my grandmother. She struggled a lot with men who drank heavily in her life and the actions they would take because of the drinking. And for me, when I thought about, wow, why did my grandma have such bad luck? Well, my grandma was a bartender. My grandma worked in a bar. It's easy to meet people where you work, right? That you're going to run into people there. That's very common, especially in an environment like that. And people who become your regulars may like to have a beverage often. Some of them can do it, go home, be great. Others go home and get angry. There are symptoms, there are signals, there are signs that my grandmother learned to watch for later in life. And the very last man I remember her dating, his name was Bill, very much found in a bar after he got off work. I know because he was part of our sales team and good friends with my mom, and they would go drinking together. She's the reason my grandmother met the guy. But as soon as my grandma saw the signs, she gave up the relationship. She thought it was better to be alone in her 60s, probably last dating opportunity because she was not in the pool, than to opt back into a behavior that she had already determined was no longer healthy for her. It's one small example, but one big example, guys. How would she change who she's dating if that's the environment in which she's meeting people? One way, for example, I would have told her, stop dating your customers. Just don't. Don't do that. Or change the clientele. Sell houses. Sell $5 million houses. Marry those customers. Not saying that's the goal, guys, but it is a perspective that we all get, right? To go from somebody who's maybe not taking care of you 100% to decide that that's no longer for you, and then to move forward into somebody who will meet your needs. And if you're not willing to be the very first person to meet your needs, who owes it to you? Pausing there. If you're not meeting your needs, if you're not the one responsible to make yourself happy when others refuse to meet you where you are fine, who's going to do it? It may hurt if others don't want to meet you there. If you go to your boss and say, hey, to stay here, I need a raise. I'm not making ends meet. I do a great job. I want a 10% increase in my wages for everything I've done. And they say no. You have a decision to make. If they say no, but, and give you an active list of things you can check off to get it done, great. Congratulations. That is not a no. It's a sure. Can you just knock this out for me? But if they just say no, you have a choice. Are you going to be a victim of that decision? Are you going to make your bank account pay that fee? Are you going to undersell yourself and feel like you're just being taken advantage of because you're not getting your value? Or are you going to go fill out applications immediately? Are you going to go take responsibility to change who's in charge of you since they don't see your value? Christine, welcome to the show. She says, running on empty lately. I would love for you to assess what it is that's taking away from your battery bar, guys. If you're an 80s kid like me, you grew up, you remember you would have those lives, you know, you have little hearts under your score or something, and you could get hit in the knee or jump or fall or whatever, and you'd be okay because you have a couple more tries. When you feel like your hearts are dissipating in your real life, when you feel like you're taking lump after lump in the same space over and over and over again, what do you do about it? Is there a power up hidden in your back pocket? Are you going to be able to figure it out? Do you have a gold star that's going to make you invincible and just run through it all? I don't know, guys. You are the one who has to figure it out for you. But this is why, right? Because it's easy to point at ourselves and go, yep, it's all me, right, Melissa? Yep, it's all my fault. It's all on me. You're right. And I'm sorry. I am. The reason why is because blame keeps the focus on them. I'll be honest, there have been so many times in my life where my brain says, why did they do that? Why did it feel okay to hurt me? Why was it allowed to behave this way? Why did they make these choices versus this choice? Why won't they change the behavior when they know it hurts you? What if they just could figure, what if I just, one word, I need to give them a line. I need to let them understand what I'm feeling and maybe it'll change. I keep taking this like, it's them, but then maybe it's me, but then it's them. Why does this keep happening? Well, because there sounds like a whole lot of gray area. It sounds like a game of tug of war. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't want to play that game anymore. I don't care to. I will release a rope before I pull you to my side. I will let it go, watch you go boom on your butt, and let you take the rope home with you. Why? Because if you're going to pull against me, I'm going to let you. And I'm not going to resist. Think about that visual. Who is on the other end of that rope for you? Who keeps tugging against you? Who keeps trying to pull you into something you're not wanting to do? You're leaning all the way back against that rope, just trying to keep that connection. But no matter what you do, you're not shifting into a comfort zone for you. You're fighting to hold the line, or you're being pulled into a place where you don't want to be. Why does this keep happening, guys? Why are you holding on to the rope knowing it's a battle? If we keep blaming the other for not doing their part, the radical accountability dies. There's none of that there. You are the one holding onto a rope, being pulled forward. Why are you allowing them the tether? If nothing else, why are you allowing them to have something in their hand that can pull you away from where you'd like to stand? And why are you still grasping it so strongly? It's a heavy one. Be honest. And David Pushkin, just so you know, there's crayons on the screen right now. Blame keeps the focus on them. Why did they do that? Why won't they change? Why does this keep happening? The answer is me. I'm allowing it. I'm allowing them space to behave that way. I'm allowing them access for me to even notice it. You have to determine how you fix that. I'm a big fan of boundaries. I'm a big fan of bubbles and Venn diagrams. And you can be in your bubble and you can allow people not to penetrate your bubble without penetrating their bubble, right? There's quite often where bubbles will just bounce off each other and go their separate ways. Sometimes they connect and they never let go and they ride the tide together. You have to determine the why, the what, the where, the who, how. All of it matters, but you're in charge. And anybody who doesn't let you feel in charge, we need to assess, guys. If you're in a relationship where maybe you don't have choice, if you're in a position, like I'm thinking trafficked humans, right? They have a boss, but they weren't chosen. It was something where the person was taken without permission. Get help, reach out, whatever it is, find a way. And I'm not blaming you for that environment, right? And I'm not talking about abuse victims who have no exit. There is no way out. You can't leave the house. You know, I think of the worst cases I've ever seen in background screening. There are options for some. Some people are really locked up in that life. If you're one of those people, please don't take this to heart from me, right? Like, don't think I'm attacking, but you have to be accountable for asking. So if you can hear this and you're in an environment where you're not feeling safe, supported, secure, reach out. You could do something as simple as Butterfinger in my DM. It's a candy bar, guys. But if you know that word's going to activate me being worried about you, if you know that that's going to tell me you're not okay and you need help to leave your environment, tell me Butterfinger. Get a code word, get a safe word. If you don't have one yet, prevent the problem. Get one now and have that. Have one person you're checking in with. If you don't feel safe, if you're worried about your environment, at least have one. right? And so please know that this is not for me to attack victims at all. If you're in one of those dangerous situations, please seek help. But if you're not, guys, then we have to focus on what we can change. If we're in a power position, if we have the authority to make those choices in our life and we're not doing so, that's when we have to take that radical accountability. That's when we need to make the change happen for ourselves. But I am not victim shaming and I'm not blaming, because I have lived that life too. I have been in an environment where it wasn't safe to ask for help yet. My son's father was physically violent for hours before the neighbor finally called the police. She didn't call the police until I banged on the wall going, "Are you seriously not going to call the police?" I made her accountable in the moment because I couldn't get to a phone. I'm not talking about that moment though, guys. I'm really not. That's how I got through it. But those hours before, I didn't even consider it. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't even a thought. And so I can't hold myself accountable for something that wasn't processing. I want you to give yourself grace for when you didn't know either, right? Or when you didn't have an option yet, or when you weren't sure how to move forward safely. These are things that you need to give yourself grace for, because blame and assessment are different. Taking accountability for your behaviors doesn't necessarily mean you're blaming yourself. You're just saying, yes, I opted into that. Yes, I decided to go to the mosh pit. So when I broke my arm, I know I opted into that, right? It's a lot different than when you are crossing a sidewalk with a green light and somebody crosses the line without permission. Does that make sense? Are you guys still here? Good morning to those who are just joining. I did see Will just showed up. Hi, Bill. How you doing? Good morning to Linda as well. I'm glad you're here. All right. So we're talking about radical accountability, right? And really just checking in with ourselves, because it starts in the mirror. It starts with us. And so those real questions we just covered, those hard-hitting ones, those ones you can ask yourself daily in every moment when you're feeling uncomfortable, the who, what, where, and whys of the moment, to assess how much control you have, how much you have to deal with, and how much you can navigate around in the future. The hardest part, though, is if you keep repeating the behaviors, if you keep trying to solve for X, if you've assessed and addressed and kept going, how long do you give it before you say, why do I keep making room for it? This one's really hard for me because, honestly, as a giver, as somebody who likes to give back, as somebody who believes in the human potential and the ability to change and cultivate a better human inside yourself to be the person you've always wanted to be, I love giving grace. I don't expect humans to be perfect. I would be a terrible coach if I thought that was a thing. I don't even expect perfection after coaching. There's no such thing as a perfect human. But we can perfect our behaviors to align with the life we determined we wanted. And if we're not perfecting the environment we're living in, if we're not editing the cast of our show as we determine it's not for us, then we have to ask ourselves, why? What is that thing that we're doing that makes us want to keep doing it? Why are they still here? Sometimes, guys, it's because they're mom and dad, their family. It's my cousin. That's who they are, and they're not changing, but I love them, and I'm refusing to give up on family. They've always been this person. And okay. But if that person is hurting you in some way, if that person is going to be detrimental to you, that's an option you're choosing to take, right? Why do you keep making room for it? Because you love your cousin, and that's cool. And honestly, guys, love your family. I'm not mad at you. But do you love your cousin who's living with you in your house? Do they have access to your bank account? Do they get to drive your car? Do they get to go into your closet and just pull your favorite shirt out and wear it and get spaghetti sauce all over it without accountability? Do you set boundaries? Do you have house rules? Do you know how to say no to the people you want around you? Whew, that's a hard one. I grew up in a huge family, My grandma said if an adult says something, you jump. So when you have 7 aunts and uncles, you have a whole lot of grown-ups barking, but not always making good decisions around me. Sometimes those grown-ups that were barking orders at me were less mature, in charge of themselves, sober. They were less sober by a lot. I struggled to take advice from people who hadn't slept in 3 days, especially when they were telling me what to do to make my life better, right? So I didn't make room for their advice very often either. Sometimes I couldn't leave the situation or the environment I was in because my mother put me there, and I'm being controlled by this human. They're in charge of me until my mother returns, but they don't get to control how much I absorb what they say, how much I apply the advice. LinkedIn, I'm here all the time. We can go live all the time. Doesn't mean I listen to everybody. I don't have room for everybody's advice because it doesn't always align with me. So it gets into that Venn diagram, guys. If you haven't figured out what a Venn diagram is, by this point, just think about that MasterCard logo, 2 overlapping circles. And where that overlap happens, in that center space where the 2 circles touch, that's where magic can happen. So if I'm dealing with a family member who's maybe not my person 100% of the time, right? But there is that overlap of we are family, we do have holidays together, we do share DNA, we do share a history. That's cool. That center is where I will focus my time and space and energy with them. But then the outside, the things that aren't overlapping, maybe they have addiction issues, maybe they have a belief system, maybe they're a different political party than me. I saw a lot of families falling apart over this. You got to focus on the center and remove yourselves from the difference. It doesn't have to be a full execution of like, you're evicted, get out, you never come back. You don't have to lock the door, but you can tell them, hey, it was great to visit. We'll see you next time, and open it up and let them go home. You can set a standard and say, I've had enough time this time. Every decision starts with us, guys. Silence is a decision. If you know that that family member is hurting you every time they make that comment and you don't speak up, that's a choice. Radical accountability. Waiting to speak up is a decision. Explaining away the behavior. Oh, well, that's just Aunt Sally. That's just how she always is. That's just Grandpa. You know, he's always thought like that. He's always talked like that. Going back is a decision. Deciding that after you've been disrespected, ignored, offended, hurt, whatever it was that made you go, ow, this isn't for me anymore. If you decide to go back, that is a decision. We have to be accountable for our choices. Choosing to be in an environment which you know creates that is a decision. And I'll be honest, guys, I have chosen to go back to situations that hurt me emotionally, physically, mentally. I have worked for bosses who made me dread seeing them every day, and I kept going back anyway. Avoiding leaving that job, avoiding deciding to take the interviews, avoiding to do anything to change it. Still a choice. You're choosing to keep it the same. And that's hard, guys. That is so hard. Because if you're choosing to not act on something you know that you need to act on, you know isn't for you, you know is hurting you in some way, you have to be accountable for that. So when I'm talking, as you're listening to the show today, what are those things that are popping in your head? What is swirling? Who is it that comes to mind that's just maybe not for you? It could be a season. It could be a reason, right? There's a ton of time, opportunity, and space for things to change. If you think about bubbles, right? I love a good bubble. I love to go to the park. I love the wind to pick up the bubbles and float them around the room. You never know where it's going to take them, right? The wind You just see so many different streams of wind going different ways. When you have a bubble, it can pick up anything. And when you think of your life, what are those things that are like controlled chaos? Sitting at a park bench, blowing bubbles is controlled chaos. You're controlling the environment. You're not sure what happens once you release the air. Are you happy in those moments? Would it drive you crazy not to know where your bubbles are going? What if you wanted them to go right to your family and they go left to the other family next to you? Are you going to change where you're sitting? Are you going to curse out the wind? Is it going to be all your family's fault for not chasing the bubbles? Simple, silly examples, but guys, I don't want to get into the hardest parts of what families go through, to be honest with you. I don't want to talk about the worst case scenarios in your days unless you guys want to get up here and talk about it, but they are heavy. They get heavy. There are people out there who would just burst your bubble to burst your bubble. They don't want you to enjoy the process. There are people out there mad that you can blow a bubble because they were blowing bubbles before you got there. You're supposed to enjoy their bubbles, not make your own. Think about any of those analogies. Think about other ones. Think about the humans, though. What is it that we're allowing? Why are we allowing the behavior we know we would never emulate to be around us? What is that overlap of the human that keeps you connected to them if that's truth? If you know you wouldn't want to be them one day, if you're not growing into a space where you guys could share or collaborate, if you wouldn't want them in your house, why are they in your life? What are the standards you're setting, and where do they change and shift? And what behaviors is it that allows some to penetrate this wall while others don't? Remember, silence, waiting, explaining, going back, and avoiding are all decisions you're making. Even if you're indecisive, that's a decision to not make a choice or force yourself to get to the nitty-gritty moment of having to determine if it's going to keep going. All right, I see somebody in the lounge here. I'm going to just wrap up this last couple of slides, and then I'm going to bring them on. Show up for yourself until success shows up for you, guys. Not everybody's going to understand your boundaries, your goals, your actions, your mindset, your belief system. Not everybody's going to always align. And thankfully for that, right? Like, so thankful for that, because it would be a really boring damn world if we all believe the same things all the time. It would. Show up for yourself until success shows up for you. And then boundaries, guys. This is one of the ones I really wanted to tackle. A boundary without follow through is just a request. I would like to have this in the fridge at the hotel, but I'm staying either way. Even if you don't have my favorite bottled water, I'm coming. Whereas maybe somebody says, hey, I don't do the show unless you have 57 pounds of gummy bears in my waiting room, my dressing room. Silly boundary for some. Maybe they spend a ton of money on their fans eating gummy bears because that was something that they did, right? I don't know why. We don't have to understand why your boundaries are there. But just remember, without a follow through, without an or else, or this is non-negotiable, however you want to say it, it's just a request. You can love someone and still limit access. I had to do this with my own mother. The rule was, don't call me unless you're sober. And I didn't need a long time of sobriety. I set the same boundary with my little sister. It was always, don't call me if you're under the influence or high right now. And I got to tell you guys, as much as it was hard for me, she would call me on a Friday and she would tell me, hey, I wanted to tell you I loved you. I'm going to hang out with friends this weekend, but I wanted to call you before I couldn't. It gave me an opportunity to ask her not to, but it still allowed me to have my boundary and space. You can love someone and still limit access. You don't have to opt into all of their behaviors. You don't have to opt into being around somebody that's hurting you. And it's the truth you can understand why somebody's acting a certain way and still not accept the behaviors. I think of a toddler throwing a temper tantrum, right? They're flinging their body everywhere. They're on the ground. They're really going at it. If I move through that and try to penetrate to heal, I could get injured, right? So being able to say, hey, little Timmy, I would love to give you a hug because you look like you need a hug, but I can't come close to you to give you a hug until you stop swinging your arms and legs around. I understand you need that hug, but I need you to be safe for me to come give you that hug. And that is caring and still choosing differently. That is the ability to be able to say, I see you, I know you need this, but I also need something in this moment, and it's not negotiable just because you're hurting too. Does that make sense? David, I saw you popped off the stage. Please come back up. I would love to hear you. I don't know what happened here. Just about done with this last slide. The pattern needs your attention, guys. Chaos is familiar for many of us. Those things that we have in our life that have been repeating, that we've allowed over time, that we were raised around. I was raised in a very chaotic family. 7 aunts and uncles, a million cousins. We're all loud. We're all excited. We all have the same kind of bold personality. We're all funny and want to be comedians. So it was familiar to have that kind of energy always around. But as I got older, I realized how much harder it is to focus in that kind of environment. How much harder it is when they pop up unexpectedly and not just at Thanksgiving when we have a full day of play that we expect this behavior. Just because you're familiar with the feeling doesn't mean it belongs in your life. Just because you're familiar with the feeling doesn't mean it's healthy. You have to really get radically accountable for that behavior. If you know it's wrong for you, how do you make it right? And truthfully, guys, sometimes it's because the change feels harder than the disappointment. Sometimes you want it to work so badly that giving it up feels harder than living with the disappointment of whatever that is in our life right now. Leaving means admitting how long we've ignored ourselves. You hear it all the time. Oh, we were together for 20 years. Okay. But if we're talking about everything until this point happening in those 20 years, all of those boundaries, all of those chaotic moments, all of those standards trying to be evolved or changed or set and it not working, we really often hear the hardest part of it is just acknowledging we allowed it to go on for so long. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to bring David on stage. David, welcome. How are you doing today, my friend?
Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome.
Oh, all right. Accessibility works. Happy Saturday, Houston. Hope you're good. Yeah, things are going well. Those who do not know me, David Pushkin, Chief Encouragement Officer, lover of all things accessibility and disability advocacy, all that good stuff. This has just been such a great conversation. I will make this succinct. You're right. Accountability is so important. And as you've said, Melissa, it starts with yourself. It's so easy to point at others without pointing back at yourself. It mainly comes down to, you're in control of your own destiny. Like if you blame others and this isn't working because of somebody else, you're always going to have that mindset. Once you realize that you're in control of your own destiny, then you have the accountability and you know that if you can then make the change, and it's all about making a change and having somebody who's there to kind of stay with you, and you have to be about it. If you want to lose weight, then you got to put in the work to lose weight. If you want to get into a relationship, you got to put the work to get into a relationship. But if you're not doing the work, don't then complain that you're not losing the weight or you can't find a significant other. And the last point on that, I suppose, is around vulnerability. Sometimes you've got to be vulnerable and just say, hey, I need some help on something. I'm not in a great place. And that's the one downfall, as they say, pride comes before a fall, so let's try and be more kind, less prideful and less ego. I'll wrap it up there. I'll yield for now. Stay encouraged.
Oh my gosh, David, I love your share. There's so many tidbits there, but I actually put up a visual while you were speaking. It says mindset shifts, and it's 4 different pillars. Only one is turned on, but the first one says self-doubt, it's off. Imposter syndrome, off. Fear, off. Courage, on. And when we have the courage to ask for what we want, to be responsible and accountable for making those changes, and to really know it comes from us first, we become unstoppable. David, will you please share like what you overcome to be able to join the stage, just because not everybody knows who you are. But you were one of my favorite humans because I met you in an audio room and you shared what you do to join the audios and how that affected you. And I just loved the courage and the wherewithal and the ability to not take no for an answer.
Yeah, I mean, perseverance, I became visually impaired 2019, completely lost my sight. There's a whole adventure around that. Anybody wants to know about it, send me a DM, David Pushkin. Happy to have a chat. It was just all about just keep trying things, keep pressing buttons. First time I tried to get into the audio rooms, we all remember those. 15 attempts I tried to get in on one, couldn't do it, literally changed a setting on my phone. And then I got in, even today, tried to get into the link. There was little things going wrong, but the main thing is it just happens. You just got to keep trying, in the grand scheme of things. If I didn't get in today, oh well, but you just keep trying. It's all about experimenting, trying things, seeing what's going to work, what isn't going to work. And that's, like I said, was it fail fast and then get back up again? The version of you that was yesterday isn't the version of you that's today. There's always time for a new you. So like I said, thanks for letting me speak. Just appreciate it.
I love that so much. I changed the visual to you define your own success, because that's really what I think of when I think of you. I couldn't imagine if it happened to me. Like, I have tried to be empathetic and really just like, what would happen? And there's times where I've left the lights off in the house just to try to understand, like, do I even know my environment as well as I think I do? What happens if? Because to lose a sense, whether it's sight, smell, taste, whatever it is, you feel different, right? Especially if you know it. And then to be able to overcome it and still push through it. I'm just always so encouraged because I am in a body that is falling apart, and everybody is. And I acknowledge that. But when I was 20 something years old, I was in an orthopedic office, and the doctor, I heard him outside ruffling the paperwork, right? They're picking up your clipboard and they're like, huh. And I hear through the door, him coming. He opens the door, looks at me, and closes the door. I was like, well, that's weird. I don't usually have doctors open and then close the door and not come in. And I hear, where's the patient? And I look at my husband because I was like, well, we're here. What do you mean? Did he not see us? Right? I'm a little confused. And the nurse or whoever it was says, she's in there. That's her. And he said, no, Melissa? And she said, yeah. And so he opened the door and asked me again, are you Melissa? And I was like, yes, I am. He goes, I'm so sorry. I looked at your x-rays and expected an older woman. He saw the x-rays of what he assumed was a 60-year-old woman in that chart. And so when he came in, he didn't expect to see my external young smiley face. And that's when it really hit me that one day I will not be able to walk. One day these hips are going to catch up to me, and it's going to be long before I actually hit the external look of 60. So when I look at people like David who are, I'm going to do it anyway. When I think about my friend Tiffany, who had CP, cerebral palsy, and graduated summa cum laude from ASU, or summa cum laude, right? I read that before I ever learned it. She did it anyway, and she couldn't use her words. She had to use sign language, but she couldn't articulate her hand the way a normal hand would move if you were able-bodied 100%. She found a way anyway, and she was top of her class. They said she couldn't walk. She has a PVC pipe apparatus that keeps her upright, and she takes her child that she delivered on runs daily. She pushes him in the stroller or has the nanny next to them while she's walking. They told me when my son was 2, I had 10 years to walk. My son is going to be 26 years old this month, and I still work 12 hours a day on my feet. I'm very blessed. But at some point, I know it's going to shift. And that's when we're going to have to figure out what that means, right? And if I'm not going to figure it out now, when am I going to figure it out? If I can't take people like David and use them as motivation for my own life, because I'll be honest, the hurdles I face, I feel are less hard, in my opinion, to overcome, right? Not having legs to use, I can get wheels, I can get motorized equipment, I can still figure it out. They have cars that can adapt to that for me. If there's a will, there's a way. And if it's not there yet, guys, would you create it? Would you make it into existence? Not a big fan of the Tesla company. I'm not going to lie. Just their trucks were never my favorite looking thing. It was kind of funny in a second grade drawing sort of way for me, but never really hit. But what I do like is it empowers people who maybe struggle to drive a little bit. Maybe it gives them that extra layer of protection because it has that extra braking technique. Maybe it prepares you a little bit better because it gives you a bubble of protection, or it's going to auto drive and prevent the accident. What are those fail safes in your life when you're not on the road? Who is that AI version or boundary or friend who comes in and says, hey, listen, you're doing it wrong. Let me stop you before you hurt yourself. Let me stop you before you make a poor choice. Let me stop you before you react in a way that's not going to be helpful. There's not a lot of technology that prepares us for all the things, but I will tell you guys, there are a few things that help me. One, it's accountability. And that's why I'm sharing this right now on the screen. If not now, when? If you're not going to be accountable to yourself today, if you're not going to write down the things that came up for you while I was talking, the things that make you uncomfortable, the things you keep repeating, the things that you're allowing, the things that don't feel great, then you need to accept them and learn how to live with them. Now, if I said you have to live with it and you got upset with me, good. Now I need you to look in the mirror. I'm not asking you to live there. I'm telling you, if you're not going to make the change, that's your other option. That's just truth. You either accept it or you change it. You either allow it or you don't. And I'll be honest, as somebody who has survived enough abuse in my lifetime for a few people over, I don't want it anymore, ever, right? I don't want to be around people who make me feel bad for being me. I don't want to be around people who make me feel inadequate or make me second guess my decisions when I know that's 100% right for me. I do love the accountability and talk through, but the truth is I'm the only one who has to live my life. There may be people who have a ripple because of decisions I make. They may ripple into their life, but I am the only person who has to look at myself in the mirror every day and know that that person is driving every decision that's being made. Do I stay or do I go? Do I accept it or do I not? Do I stand up and say, no, this is unacceptable, or do I allow it? When you're in a work environment, you have to make this choice. You know, this is a harder one because you're talking about your bills. You're talking about retirement plans, maybe a 401k, maybe a lot of those things, right? And so when I was in a work environment where I knew that there were employees not happy and that it was really our supervisor, our boss, the owner of the company, I tackled it. I tackled it head on because I cared about my team. I cared about the ability to overcome it. I wanted to reinforce the business and help it grow and make it bigger and do all the things I was hired to do. But unfortunately, the boss was the problem. So I addressed it. And when I addressed it, and then there would be a little bit of a change. And then I addressed it and there'd be a little bit of a change. And then I addressed it and be a little bit of change. And then a few years in, a couple businesses over, I still saw the same behaviors coming from that person. And we had addressed it and we had assessed it and we had tried to put in plans to make it not happen anymore. And it happened anyway. I quit my job and I started my consulting firm. You can only ask so many times before you determine you're not going to be able to get it. right? And you have to think about it this way. If you have tried over and over and over and turned it every way you can to solve for X and you're not solving for X, you either need to let it be. It's not going to shift. It's concrete. It doesn't change. Or what? You tell me what comes to mind. Do you give it up? You upgrade? Do you take your boss's job? You're the new boss because you see what they don't. What I know is you're going to write your story either way. Whether you determine to live this life, give it more time to see if it'll shake itself out, if you determine to act to change it all, it's up to you. And here's what I know. There can be value in a relationship and have it still not be healthy. There can be value in a connection and still not have it be something you need to sustain or retain, maintain. It really comes down to the ROI for you. If I'm engaging with somebody who doesn't make me feel good, who every time I hear their name, every time they pop up in a conversation, there's something that's just, ugh. Is there ROI in maintaining that access to my mindset? If every time I see somebody, let's just say politics, guys, you've seen it all over the internet. Do you unfollow those people or do you continue to connect? Do you say, I don't want to see this and give feedback to the algorithms, or do you just let it ride? Have you ever paused or snoozed somebody on social for 30 days just to take a break so you could protect your mindset, but keep them in their position and they don't even know that you've paused their post? Have you had to block somebody for the same reason? I'm going to be honest, I have never regretted trimming the fat out of my life, because I don't do it unless I have assessed. I don't do it unless I'm bleeding and the razor is attached to the human on the other end of that scream, the conversation, that phone call, whatever it is. You can't make a perfect life happen with just, exploding relationships, burning bridges, cutting all the time, cutting people out every time they upset you. But if you really have tried to work through stuff with people and you really have tried to give them space and show them respect and ask for the same, and it just doesn't show up, you have to figure it out. You have to either change your standards so you don't keep letting yourself down by hoping for it, or you have to change the environment. You have to change the lineup, change the cast. And it's hard because I loved my job. Person anymore. And now at this point, 10, 11 years later, I've blocked that person. When I have them on my resume, it says undisclosed business or private company. And I'll just put it there. And then when they ask for it, I'll give it to them. I don't have them on my LinkedIn. Why? Because every new employee would come look for me. I was so sick of being stalked by the employer who could not keep me, who did not change. I have coached people who have had similar experiences, not same boss, same kind of behaviors. So it's not just me. It's not just one person. You guys have to figure out what your story is going to look like. There was somebody I coached for free. I was doing 15-minute chats on LinkedIn a couple of years ago. I had so many coffee chats, and I was like, all right, guys, I have 5 free slots, 15 minutes each, pick them. And one person picked that 15-minute slot and told me about an environment where her boss was just not being appropriate. He would come walk up behind her and just stand way too close, And not to get into all of it, I have permission to share this to some degree, but I won't share who today. I will say this, though. I just asked the question, why? I went back to the elementary education concepts. Who, what, where, when, why? Who is this person? Why are they allowed to do this? What are you going to do about it? When is it going to change? How are you going to change it? And I am so proud of where this human stands today. That human decided to change the way life looked. And life looks incredibly different. So different, it doesn't even feel like the same human sometimes. And I'm proud because all it took was one conversation of asking that hard question. The hard questions, right? To change the way we think, respond, act. Deciding not to take it anymore or avoiding the choice. To show up and still hope that maybe their behavior will change the next day. Maybe my boss will finally get it together. Maybe if I just give them a little space, they'll figure out how to human or how to engage or how to network or how to be a professional on a professional platform. Maybe they'll be more respectful if I just give them a little more time. What does that clock look like, guys? How long are you going to give people in this environment to keep making you feel that way? It's a lot. Radical accountability. What's coming up for you guys? Let me know. Are you in the comments? Are you there? I see some of these here. Let me see. Let's see. Felipe says, I always try to remember to stop saying why me and instead ask myself what's next. That's a very good one. The reason it's you, it's because your life, right? It's your life, your actions, your options, your surroundings. That's why. So now what? I love that. Jay says, my boundary is if you refuse to check in, then I will not associate myself with you and I will move on. Ooh. Do you tell people that's your boundary? What is the time frame on check-ins before you cut them off? And who is held to that standard? Is it everybody? Is it like the mailman? If he doesn't knock on the door and say, hey, Jay, how you doing? You're going to refuse the mail. I'm being a little facetious. I'm being a little crazy in the way I assess that. But truthfully, what is that boundary? Who has it? Who, what, where, when, why? If you can't run that for a boundary, I have questions. Is it a boundary or is it a personal block for one person in your brain? Because truthfully, if it's everybody, then who are you going to stop going to the grocery store if the cashier doesn't ask you how your day was? What does that really mean? I want you guys to get radically accountable for the words you're using. David Pushkin, good to see you, my friend, says Jay. Jay says, had it not been for my parents, college, and full-time job, I would not be successful and be able to advocate for disabilities. I love that you took the accountability and responsibility to go get that done. AI will not take responsibility for. Oh, yeah. AI cannot be the one, guys. AI is great as a tool. It is not a replacement manager. It is not somebody who can coach. It's not a coach, right? It can give you some ideas of what coaches have fed it. But remember, AI is a tool that learned from other humans, and you don't know which humans trained it. You don't know what it was fed by whom before you got there. And so to take it at its word every time, as soon as you hit enter without any kind of pushback, you're in trouble, right? And I don't recommend it to replace a coach at all. I love AI. I love tools. I love things like that. But best you're going to get from me for AI is, hey, can you give me some topics to consider as a mindset coach for upcoming shows? Hey, can you set an alarm for 5 o'clock because I have to be at my desk by 6 a.m. to do my show? Those are things that I would use it for, but I would never ask it, what should I do with my life? Or here's my environment. What should I do? Because it's going to go based on who fed it. And I don't know if it was a PhD with a college degree in psychology, or if it was Sally who has a 3-month relationship as her longest standing and she rotates them out every 2. I don't know, right? You guys have to assess for yourself. Set boundaries on your data, who's giving you advice, how you're taking it in. It really matters. Jay also says managers should learn to take responsibility for things that associates may not be satisfied. However, I feel like managers don't do that because all they care about is satisfying customers and clients. Whew, this one I like, Jay. I got to tell you, as a manager who is absolutely always focused on the customer, because that is our job. When I look at an associate whose job is also to serve the customer and they're not satisfied in their job, my first question is, did they bring that to me? Did they communicate to me they're unhappy? Did they assess why they were happy before they came? Is it something they can control? What about that environment that they're unhappy about can we actually change? Because I can tell you, if you're in retail and you hate the environment on Black Friday morning at 4 a.m. when there's 10,000 people wanting one TV for $100, you're not going to change that. Probably not. But if you can tell your boss, hey, I hate this moment. Can I please be in the back room just pushing product back to the floor instead of on the floor with all these humans? There might be some opportunity there, because if I know you're not happy on the floor, my customers may know that too. And so I do want to put you in your strongest position. But it's up to you to take the responsibility to have the conversation, make sure it aligns with the job, because you are an employee. You came for this job. You knew retail had a Black Friday. How are we going to be upset about what we knew we were opting in for? Those are the things that, as a manager, as somebody who's had a manager, the accountability, that radical accountability comes back on us. Why are you in a job you knew had a task like that you hated or didn't like, and you haven't addressed it? Now, if you're addressing it and you tell your manager the way you speak to me is inappropriate, you stand too close to me, it feels like harassment or assault, and they don't change, you have the choice to go over their head if there's somebody above them. And at that point, that's what I would implore you to do. Don't leave it for the next guy to have to tackle. If you can handle it, address it now. But if they are the end all be all, if they are every bit of the business as the owner and you have nobody to go to beyond them, you have legal ramifications you can take. You can go to an attorney, because there's laws that prevent that kind of behavior in that environment for a reason, right? Because there were so many who did have bosses that were doing things that were inappropriate, that laws were made, and there's punishments and there's requirements for certain behaviors in a business, right? And so you have options even then. But last case scenario, just get out, right? If you can't fix it, if you can't alter it, if you can't bypass and improve in some way, then you change the environment. And it's not easy, guys. It's not easy to have to give up a job you've given so much to just because one person has now decided they're not going to behave the right way, or they're going to make decisions that are going to impact you, and you have to live with it or don't, right? And that sucks. It really sucks, especially when, for me, I was part of a new startup staffing firm. It hadn't been around very long, and I was going to have the second office be my domain, the place I created, and I did successfully. But the behaviors didn't change with the boss. So I fired the boss. I actually left, went to work for one of the clients that I had brought on. They had to lay me off when their machine broke, the one that paid my salary. I went back to that employer after a house fire, the original one that I started the business with, that second location, and started a background screening firm. Tried again. All right, I left. You're going to learn. You're going to treat me better this time. It didn't happen. Eventually, the behaviors came back exactly the same way, worse even. And so I quit. And I went into business for myself, because I've given you a chance. I tried, I left, I came back. I'm just going to do it for me. Why am I doing it for somebody who doesn't appreciate me when I could just do it for me instead? And Melissa Houston, coaching and consulting was born, right? I get all tongue-tied on my own, but I determined that wasn't okay for me anymore, and I bet on myself. And it took me a long time to get there, guys. It took me 30 years of being a top salesperson for other people to determine that I could sell my services directly and not have to hide behind a product that somebody else created. Think about that for yourself, guys. What is it that you're taking on that you don't have to? What are you capable of that you're holding yourself back from? What would life look like if you gave yourself everything you're asking for unapologetically? Because the truth is, if your boss isn't going to do it, if your partner's not going to do it, if your family doesn't do it, if your best friend or your whatever, insert it there, if they're not doing it, who's going to? If you see the problem, you are accountable for it. In my world, if somebody in my team sees a problem and doesn't assess it, address it, or try to bring a solution, you're part of the problem now too. You knew it was there. What is going on? And so if you can't take that radical accountability to be part of your own problem by allowing it, we're in trouble. David Pushkin says, thank you for letting me share. What this reminds me of is the prayer around serenity, to accept the things you cannot change, have the courage to change those things you can, and have the wisdom to know the difference. And you know what, guys? David, you just hit me in my feelers. I grew up around that prayer. My mom had it on the fridge because she struggled with addiction. And so maybe that is part of it. So thank you for that. It's so beautiful. We can only change the things we can, and we can't take accountability for the things we can't. We can't change the other humans in our lives. We can only take accountability for if we're going to allow them to let us feel that way, if we're going to allow them to continue to act that way, if we're going to keep living that life. Victory and victim both start out the same way, guys. It's up to you how it ends. If you try to fight the things you can't, and you know you can't make that difference, if you can't accept the things you cannot change, and have that wisdom to know the differences. I can't change other people. I can ask, I can beg, I can absolutely attempt as a coach to give every bit of what I have inside of me to give perspective and hope and opportunity. But it comes down to the other human. And how much time do you invest into others who are not investing in themselves? How much time do you give to a problem that seems to be just yours? Nobody else seems to think it's a problem, but you know it is. You know you feel it. What if all the coworkers are cool with the way that the beehive goes and they just love to nitpick each other? What if they don't see a problem with the boss, but you do? You know it's just not right with you. You can try to change the environment, which 95% of the people are excited and happy with, or you can find your people. And there's nothing wrong with not being aligned with a human. There's nothing wrong with not fitting into the circle of the humans you think you should. It's okay. There are people who do the exact same thing I do. They're coaches, they're consultants, they live stream, they do their thing. They're all over the place. And I still don't align with what they do. In a Venn diagram, we 90% overlap on the pillars of our actions, but our mindsets, our behaviors, our moral and ethical codes, completely different, not overlapping. That's okay. We might end up on the same list, but you won't see us at the same table. And why? Because I have a standard for my circle. I have a way I want to play. I want to be Mr. Rogers in a cardigan. I want people to remember me fondly. If I'm going to be a Sesame Street character, I do want to be Big Bird, not Oscar the Grouch. I want to be accountable for the ripple that I leave and the feelings I leave people with. And when I don't align with them, I don't want to force the connection. I don't want to force them to change. And I'm certainly not going to make them change or let me change or have them force me to change. I can't even say the words. You're not going to change me unless I have learned something valuable from you in that moment. And that's okay, guys, because I'm always assessing for new data. I'm always willing to change my perspective but I'm also very proud of the fact that you're not going to just sway the tater because you tell me it's right your way. You have to prove it. I need to see the science. If you tell me that the sky is blue, I'm going to look up. I'm going to confirm what you said. And if you don't like it, why are you telling everybody the sky's blue if you're not certain it's blue? If you don't want me to confirm the sky is blue, why would you bring it up? Why would you point it out? Hey guys, it's a mindset thing. Who's asking you to take advice, behaviors, actions for what they are at somebody's word without any kind of confirmation or accountability to prove it true if necessary, that's a scary spot to be in. I want you to be accountable for that too. I think a lot of what has happened within families, especially in this political climate we have found ourselves in, is just knowing you're right, knowing you're the authority, knowing you get to determine what's good, bad, or ugly, and not being accountable to confirm that it is good, healthy, and beneficial for all. You just assume, you just say so because you say so. You heard it from the guy you believe, so you don't have to listen to anybody else. You don't even have to fact check anymore because I learned Columbus discovered America. He must have been the first guy there. I heard it. I heard it my whole life. It's got to be true. Radical accountability is not taking anything at face value. Radical accountability is to own the fact that you took Columbus as the end-all be-all answer and ran with it. Why? Because you trusted the humans around you. Because that's the way it was structured. Because that is exactly what they taught us to do. And as a coach, my biggest job is to unteach those lessons. Stop taking it just because they said so. Stop allowing it just because that's what you're given. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I don't care how you serve me sauerkraut on my plate. I don't want it. I don't. The only time I've ever been okay with a sauerkraut is when it's on a Reuben. And I don't really order a Reuben. I think I've done it once. I might have even been pregnant at the time. I don't remember, but I'm not a big fan of sauerkraut. I don't like the smell. I don't like anything. But in that one moment, that one bite of a Reuben, maybe I can enjoy it. That's okay to allow things in certain spaces. I love red vines and popcorn. I do it at the theater. You don't usually see me do it at home. It's the space for that. That's okay. Doesn't mean there's a wrong answer. It doesn't mean that if, my friend Felipe wants to do it at home every Tuesday, that he's wrong for doing it that way. We have to assess what works for us, what doesn't. What overlaps, what doesn't. What we're willing to live with, what we're not. But if I could ask you to do anything, it's to check in with yourself. To not go too long without actually taking accountability for the life you're seeing. If you're looking at your life and you have things you're not happy with, what does the solution list look like? Because once you've identified the problems, hey, dishes need done, I need to vacuum my house, I need to take out the trash. Do we have a list of action? Or are we just going to complain? Who's going to be responsible for that? Do we leave it for the next guy or do we just knock it out because we identified there was a problem there? If you're the one bothered by the problem, why aren't you the one bothered to find the solution? And if you're asking for a solution and you're not being heard, are you on the right team? Are you in the right building? Are you in the right room? Because if you are respected by the people around you, if you do your assessment, if you do the work to confirm what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and you have done all of that, and then you bring it to light to your boss, to your employer, to your parents, your spouse, whoever it is, I don't care, your kids. If you come and tell them, I've done the work, I've done the assessment, this is how I feel, and this is what I'm needing, and you don't get it, you have more work to do. It's time to go back and figure out what's next. Some people will go, it's okay, I can live without it. It's okay. Others will say, there's no way I want to live without it. And they'll make a plan. The accountability comes back to you. Nobody can tell you what's good for you. It could seem perfect on paper for somebody else. It could be the best job in the world. It could be anything you want it to be. But if you're not taking responsibility for this, if you're not actively making it happen to change the things that don't feel good to you, then you're actively allowing them and you're actively accepting it every day. What are you accepting? Why? Because sometimes, guys, maybe you don't have a choice. As a caregiver, when I was 16, my grandfather had dementia. I didn't know my grandfather growing up. I was raised by his ex-wife, my grandmother Kurtz, and his daughter, my grandma Morrison. They were around. Those were the grandparents I had growing up. Those were the ones that I knew, loved, and understood. So when my great-grandmother passed away and my grandmother was asked to take care of her dad, I was a little salty at that guy. I'm not going to lie to you. He had divorced my grandmother, fallen in love with another woman, remarried, and my grandmother never did. She had meant what she said when she got married. And I watched her live single, and it was fine. But when I met him, I was so angry. I was so angry at him for what I knew. And they never down talked him in a bad way. I had questions. Where's grandpa, right? They say grandma and grandpa in the book. Where's my grandpa? But my grandma, my mom's mom, loved her dad. She was a daddy's girl. And she was on her couch crying, needed help. I offered. I was his caregiver. Going back in now, right? I don't really know this guy. I don't really have the fondest feelings for him. I'm not mad at him in a way that's like changing the way I would treat him. But I also didn't have a desire to really be his best friend. Does that make sense? Like, he's family. He's going to be taken care of. I'm proud of what I do. And so I'm going to do a good job for my grandma. And every human deserves that kind of respect. But I struggled. And then when I would walk in and I'm like, hey, how you doing, Grandpa? And he's like, everybody I can, making a sexual joke about just trying to sleep with anybody. Ooh, was that salt in a wound? You left my grandmother for another woman. And then when I walk in and you don't know me, you're hitting on me, saying you're sleeping with every woman you can. And you would call me Toots and tell me how cute I was. And I'm like, of course I'm cute. I look like your ex-wife. Guys, it was hard. It was hard to live a life with a family member with dementia, with a situation where I didn't have a choice to opt out of the job because grandma needed me. But I also couldn't hold him accountable for that because he didn't know what he was doing. And so there are some gray areas out there. When it comes to accountability, you really do need to assess, like, how much of this is active decision? How much of it is because of situations that the other party is in, right? It's easy to get mad at people for not finishing a job, but if you know they have ADHD and they got distracted by the other job and they're doing 5 jobs at the same time, are you mad at them for being an overachiever working on 5 different projects? Or are you just like maybe needing to reassess that, hey, what you assumed was the path forward isn't the way they want to move forward, and you're going to just either do the job your way or let them do all 5 and give them a little bit of time before you come back and assess. Is the accountability deadline based? Did you come and say, hey, I love what you're doing on these projects, but I really need you to come back to project 1 because it's due by noon, and then you can pick up the other 4? How do you address these things, guys? How do you address these things with yourself? Because I am that person who has multiple jobs going. I will say, hey, I'm going to clean the kitchen, and then somehow the kitchen towel needs to go into the laundry room. And while I'm in the laundry room, I may as well start the laundry. And oh, the dryer's ready to go into the room. I should go fold that really quick. And then, oh, while I'm in the room, I should vacuum. Oh my gosh, I saw some fluff on the floor. 2 hours later, the dishes that I started, the sink water's cold. It's done. It's gone. Am I mad at myself? Am I being accountable for the fact that I followed the trail of things that were needed? It was breadcrumbs. I have a path that got me here, and I can explain every step. Should I be mad at myself for not doing one thing, or should I be grateful that I kept following what needs to be done and I was accountable for the things I saw as I went? And if there's nobody else who's involved in this task, if it's self-assigned, if it's something you wanted to do, how can you do it wrong if you're okay with outcomes? If you didn't hurt anybody in the process, if it was just something you tackled without being asked, and you didn't damage anything in the process, are you giving yourself grace? Are you mad about that first task not being done? When you measure yourself, I need you to really consider how many extra things pop into your life every day. I have a to-do list every day. I have a weekly to-do list, and then I have an after to-do list. I know we've talked about it in the show. If you guys haven't seen the show, please go back to YouTube, watch an episode or two. We talk about it often. But if you have 3 to-do lists, and you're always giving yourself grace to at least tackle 3 things in one day, make sure you're reaching in the next day for some more stuff from this week, and then again with the thereafter. And you just keep returning to that every day, not giving up that accountability, not giving up the hope that you're going to try to tackle as much as you can every day, but also giving yourself the grace to know that if others have to add to your to-do list, a sick child calls from school and says, I need to be picked up, your to-do list just shifted. Priorities change. Your largest client calls. You were supposed to do marketing to get new clients, but your largest client calls and says, hey, if you don't take this call now, I'm out of here. Guess what? You better not call for new customers. You better save the one who's already paying you. It's accountable for your outcomes. Accountability, where is it? What does it look like for you? What are the outcomes you're working for? How are you going to get there? And who are you hurting in the process? And I'm hoping it's no one. I hope you're not hurting anybody. I hope you can grow and help others to get there. I really do. As a coach, the one thing I will say I see the most of is putting yourself on the back burner, refusing to put yourself in a priority position. And this is my biggest shortfall. If I had to look back over the course of my life, it was making sure everybody else had oxygen first. It was taking so much of my time, energy, and focus and putting it into others that I didn't take care of me, and then hoping others would somehow offset that. I need to be accountable for that care. I need to be accountable for the outcomes of how I'm taken care of, especially when you are asking for it and you're not getting it in your work, in your home, from yourself. If you need help, guys, I'm here. Right? This is the part of the show where I tell you what I do again. I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you for joining the stage today, David. I just want you to take a moment. And if you are ready for your life to change, whether it be career, your mindset, your confidence, your leadership, your alignment, or your relationships, I would love to chat. I can help hold you accountable to the things you say you want to do. And that's often what we need most, guys, because of that education system, because they teach us to have that accountability, because the teacher would pull the stuff out of the desk and organize it. Today, when I get a doom pile on my desk, which does happen, it didn't stop my behaviors. It just taught me to assess them at some point, to stop, check in, clean it up, get back into it. If you need that stop point, that accountability, that weekly, did you clean out your desk this week? Did you get your to-do list done? Do you need a gold star from me to know you've done it? I can help. We can coach. We could do that. I'm opening up some extra positions on Monday for coaching. I have 2 extra coaching slots if you guys want them. But here's the thing. You have to be ready. You have to be willing to be brutally honest with yourself. What's working? What's not? Because I cannot help people who cannot articulate that. I can help you dig in. I can give you some tools that will help you do the assessments, ask you some questions that'll be hard to answer, but once answered, you'll get somewhere. And then I can hold you accountable to the steps that come after we assess. But you got to be ready. You can do this without me if you put in the fail safes. And it's any coach, guys. There's YouTube out there. You can go watch former Coffee Chat episodes. You can write down the recipe of success I've shared in every show. You could do it for other coaches who have done the same. But you have to determine what that looks like and if you can actually go back to the list. I have a $100 clarity session for new clients only. So if you want it, message me now. But guys, we got to get out of here because I want to dance. I want to dance and I want to play my songs. So thanks for coming. Hope to see you next week on Coffee Chats when we're talking about inspirement versus retirement. Which one are you planning for? We'll get into it. Not everybody's going to get to retire, but I'm sure we can get everybody into inspirement. So come back next week for that. Make sure you're checking out Social Saturday. That's coming soon. And we'll see you soon on Careers, Chaos, and Coaching. Also next week. Take care, guys.
Sunlight creeps through my window pane. Dreams of stars, now a faint refrain. Coffee brews and thoughts collide in this early morning ride. Wake up world, let's start the day. Insight flows in a bright array. Questions dance like morning dew. In this space, it's me and you. Coffee chats with Melissa. Every cup is a whisper. Conversations open door. Spilling thoughts forevermore. Ideas bubble crisp and bright. Words take flight in morning light. Consult the heart, make it sing. New perspectives on each wing. Pour another cup of cheer. Every thought